with this conversation that we began in the previous hour. Now, you are talking about all those areas that you are trying to differentiate or distinguish those terms, divorce, separation, annulment, and all that, even as you delving deeper into this. Probably you could continue from where we left.
I like what you said, that even though divorce is a reality with us, you've talked about hope. And if you look at the Marriage Act and the provisions to do with divorce, there seems to be an overriding kind of a policy about reconciling parties and salvaging marriages. So it's not just about provisions about what should you do. So, and that's what I would like to start with. So, for example, if you look at section 64, it says for Christian marriages and even for civil marriages, the ones that are done at the AGs or the DOs, those offices, yeah, that for Christian marriages, it says that before you go to court or the court handles the matter, that the parties may seek services of any reconciliation bodies established for that purpose that may exist in the in the public place of worship where the marriage was celebrated. So you see, that's normally the first point. It's not that when, even for us, that lawyers, when people come to you that we want to divorce, you tell them, let's go. In court currently, there's something we call court annexed mediation, where as the matter goes on, or even as it begins, the judge or the magistrate tells you, could you go and try to reconcile and see whether you people can go over your differences. And after like 60 days, you can come back with a report whether were you able to reconcile or you are not able to reconcile. Of course, this is done under the watch of a mediator, an impartial party that is trying to reconcile the parties. Number three, I had talked about separation. Again, that is, you see, that is a pre-step before divorce. Not to say that you will be forced to go through this, but it's provided for so that if you feel we want to stay apart for a year, as I had said, to see whether things will cool down, then that is allowed and it's under the law. So you're still married to each other, but you're not staying together. And this is important when you look at the realities in our society, for example, where parties are living in a violent relationship. And there are people who fight, like the wife anapotea anarudi kwao within a week, amerudi within, that kind of a thing. So instead of them staying in that kind of a situation where maybe things are working yet they're not working, then people are given a time off to go and consider. And people have up to 2 years, as we shall be seeing below. Now, when it's past beyond 2 years, then at that particular point, then that marriage is just, it's considered, you've been talking about irreconcilable differences, but it's considered irretrievably broken. As there's a saying going around attributed to one of our politicians, hiyo imeenda. Hiyo imeenda kabisa. Yes, that's irretrievably broken. So let's go to the grounds. We had said the Bible provides for marital infidelity and abandonment. If you are to look at Leviticus, you would find that our laws were fashioned on the Bible. So don't be surprised that what was first provided in the Bible, you come and find it in our laws. So under section 65 of the Marriage Act, I had said the Marriage Act is a self-contained act that provides for Christian marriages, civil marriages, Hindu marriages, Islamic, customary, all those. Before they used to be in different pieces. You remember that introduction?
Yes.
So the grounds of divorce for Christian marriage, number one is one or more acts of adultery. It's what you had mentioned before. So I think why it says one or more, it's not that if you feel aggrieved, you don't have to wait that maybe they accumulate to a certain number. Because again, in our society, there is something people are normally told, vumilia. So the vumilia part, it's upon a party and the grace that they have. So one or more acts of adultery. Number two is cruelty.
Mhm.
And cruelty, most of us would think of maybe physical violence, but it can be mental or physical. There are areas where, for example, a person is taken through a situation where they are being tortured mentally. And I mean, if you can have enough evidence to show that the other party has been cruel to you mentally and physically, then that is a ground. And it's not only cruelty to the other party. Let's say the husband beating or being cruel to the wife, or the wife being cruel to the husband. Again, it's cruelty on a child in that marriage.
Mhm.
Number three is desertion. It's spoken of abandonment. I think that's the language used in First Corinthians, when Paul chapter 7, that deals with marriages and relationship.
Mhm.
So desertion, if a person disappears and goes for over 3 years, then that is a ground enough.
3 years, no communication, nothing.
Yeah, they're gone. You even don't know whether they are there. And remember, I had spoken at some point about some, we call them presumptions of the law. You see, like after 7 years, if you've been away and we don't know where you went, then there's a presumption that you died.
Mhm.
If we were selling items or doing some things, we can consider you that you're normal.
Mhm.
So for marriages, desertion, if it's beyond 3 years, you've seen these funny stories. I've seen them in the newspapers for a couple of times, that a man left when he was 40 and he's coming back when he's 80.
Yeah. Many years, 40 plus years. Those
And he's
are.
asking the wives, couldn't you wait a little bit more? I mean, I was coming.
And the woman, I think in some of the stories I hear that the woman would have moved on or
I
something.
mean,
Mhm.
how would you wait for 40 years waiting for someone who does not even report where they went? I've dealt with cases personally. One was in Ukambani, that's the most I will say, of a person who disappeared and went to an African country and stayed there for years. Only after he learned that the wife had, some people had bought some farm somewhere and constructed a nice house, that's when he started creeping back. And they got back together somehow, even though they are quite advanced in their age. Let's go desertion for more than 3 years.
Mhm.
Then there's what we call exceptional depravity. Today we are using big words, connivance, condoning depravity.
Mhm.
And what is exceptional depravity? There's depravity, and depravity is normally, when someone takes you through a condition which really no human being would be expected to live with. I'll be giving a couple of what might constitute exceptional depravity. But when we were in school, I remember us being told, although this was being discussed under the heading of cruelty, where there's this lady who loved cats.
Mhm.
And so they got married to this man. And this person just kept cats, and they kept breeding and multiplying everywhere. You turned in the house were cats, 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 cats.
So it was a cat sanctuary of
Really,
sorts.
really. And I think this woman prioritized cats even before the husband.
Mm.
And when this person went to court seeking a divorce, they were granted because it was um, uh, the court found that to have been cruel to the man to have cats all over, as you turn. So let's see what constitutes exceptional depravity. Every marriage will have its problems, but it's not every problem that we can say it's an exceptional hardships. But as I've said, there are others that no ordinary or reasonable person would be expected to live with. So the courts normally interpret the law, and they make the law. There's what the parliament makes, but also the courts enrich it. So courts have found that some of these situations may constitute exceptional depravity. For example, a spouse who is involved in adulterous behavior with more than 10 people, as in you can count, it's too much, it's too many. I mean, no person would be expected to live in such a union. There is where a spouse disappears from the beginning, as in you've gotten married, then as I had said, he disappears.
Enda kufanya business trips
Anaenda
to an unknown place
anaenda Kigali ama DRC and
for the longest time.
yes, and they're not saying anything, they are gone. There is abusive speech and conduct causing the other spouse to suffer grave psychological problems. For example, you may you may be insulting your husband or your wife every day to a point really they cannot live with it. Where were we? For example,
exceptional depravity and all.
Yes, there's also continuous physical violence resulting in serious injuries, and you've seen it in our society. You find a person maybe. I experienced a case where someone did not have full apathy because of violence they were suffering. I also know a person who had a cracked what do you call it, cranium.
Cranium.
Now a person cannot stay. Even though, for example, in the Bible it didn't mention violence, it mentioned 2 grounds. But this is depravity you cannot live with. Let me not go through the other list, but you've gotten the point.
Yes.
Then there's what is not considered exceptional. There are some things like you're married in another community, and maybe for the first year you cannot keep up with their traditions and things like this. Now you can't say because these people don't do things the way I am used to doing that. Now that is exceptional depravity. A judge is likely to tell you kaka kidogo, then you'll get used to this. Yes. Or like having a controlling spouse or parent-in-law causing you stress. Those are things probably that can be addressed and that can be handled. Yes, so I was trying to expound on the ground of exceptional depravity, and then there's a final ground. And before we used to talk of irreconcilable differences. This was like an omnibus ground that carries a lot of other things inside. But I told you the Marriage Act came into force in 2014. So what that act provides for is irretrievable breakdown, that the marriage has broken irretrievably, and it's what I was calling yo imeenda. So the act, that's the Marriage Act, goes ahead to define what is, in what situation. You had asked me, how is it that some grounds will stand, some won't stand? I've given you the 5 grounds. But then when it comes to considering whether a marriage has irretrievably broken down, you look at, so this is what the law considers as pointers of a marriage that has irretrievably broken down. It's where a spouse commits adultery, where a spouse is cruel, the things we had said before, where a spouse willfully neglects the other spouse for at least 2 years, immediately before the presentation of a petition to court, where now you want the marriage dissolved, where the spouses have been separated for at least 2 years. And that's why we said separation is allowed, but again, not infinitely. There is where a spouse has deserted the other for at least 3 years, we had said, where a spouse has been sentenced to a term of imprisonment for life. That's almost a situation like we were saying, where a person is gone and you are not expected to sit there and wait, or at least where a person has been sentenced for more than 7 years. Then the law allows you to file for divorce if that's the situation. There's another issue of where a spouse suffers incurable insanity. That's to say don't know whether this is the proper language to use. Probably madness. It would be hard to stay with such a person. They might harm you, and I'm not sure you'll have the peace that probably marriage is supposed to bring. But there are steps to follow. For example, it must be certified that this person is incurably insane by doctors, one of which must be a psychiatrist, and they will have written such a report. So if you file for divorce and you say my spouse is mad, a judge will not just take you what you think is mad from face value. There has to be a report. Yes. And finally, we are saying what constitutes irretrievable breakdown of a marriage is any other ground as the court may deem appropriate. This is when you find sometimes the lists we have are never exhaustive. At the bottom, you see other reasons that like are sufficient. Let me see what to handle next. I had said when you get married and you're not in good terms within like a year or 2 years, the law does not allow that you run to court to try and dissolve that marriage. It says wait at least for 3 years. And remember, I told you of the overarching or the overriding policy. It's to preserve marriage. It's not to break it, and that's why it gives it time. So people should not enter into it lightly. There's that period that you must observe. The grounds that I've said are not mutually inclusive. Someone may think you must show that there was adultery and there's cruelty.
Evidence.
Yeah, that all of them must be together. You need one of them. And remember, for a ground like adultery, I say at least one incidence. So they don't have to be. They are not exclusive. It's no, actually they are mutually exclusive. One can stand on its own.
Okay. So as you are preparing to go to the next session, I have seen a number of people who are already getting in touch with us and sharing their questions and all that. And just want to acknowledge a few of you also receiving us live on Facebook there, as well as on YouTube. David Okumu, as well as Lucy Jerry. Thank you, Massimo Tule. Daudi Limo saying great discussion. God bless you. God bless you too. Grace Kundi, as well as Charles Luanga Ogato from Nyamira County. And just tying in on that whole area of what constitutes, irretrievable marriage,
irretrievable
breakdown
yes.
of a marriage, isn't it?
Yes.
Somebody was asking, they've been looking at their marriage, and there's this the refusal to consummate, refuses to have intimacy with the wife. The wife refuses the husband. Yeah, can that be ground for divorce? Because they've been hearing what we are saying. They're asking if that could also be a ground.
If there was no consummation, remember, consummation is let's say the initial act of intimacy, if you may say so. Then that's a ground for annulment.
If there was no consummation,
yes.
Within what period of time, or even absolutely no consummation in that particular marriage?
I think consummation should be before a party raises it, because you don't find the law saying that you must consummate within a certain period. Though in church, even pastors will tell you, on the day of the wedding, let it happen. So if there was no consummation, because that's what the listener has mentioned, then that would be a ground for annulment. But if there was intimacy, but then it has been withdrawn and refusal, there are moments when it doesn't happen for other reasons, not that there's refusal, then that could constitute cruelty. Yes.
All right.
The cruelty is a big ground under which you find various things like I had given examples of. Yes. Yes.
Yeah, because I understand for this one they already consummated.
Yes.
But I think there was that refusal at some point for a long period of time, and there could be reasons as to why probably the wife is going that direction. And as a lawyer, do you think there should be a time when even these particular couple would look for services of a counselor or somebody like that to help them before they now go to the extent of now probably looking at or escalating the issue to the court.
I think the 3 years we talked about is when people should look at all those things. But now, beyond 3 years, the law then does not expect that you would continue waiting. And as I had said at the beginning about the efforts both by the church and by the law to try and salvage marriages, it's why we talked about mediation and conciliation by organs in the church that are constituted for that purpose. So asking about how long they should wait, then the law already provides for that 3 years. Although we've said about like separation, again, parties are not expected to be staying apart for more than 2 years. Otherwise, the law will consider that the marriage is irretrievably broken. Yes.
Still on separation, because you mentioned it, there's a listener here who is asking, in case of separation, who pays the woman's bill? The woman's bills, and especially where there are children, where children are involved. He's really interested to know that.
What normally happens during as you file a divorce, as it continues, the court is able to give the parties some relief as you continue. As it be children in school, there is the maintenance of a spouse, and it can be the man, it can be the woman. So maintenance is a whole other area. Like we are talking about divorce, it's a whole other area. And if this is my intention, that probably in the next session we could deal with the whole issue of maintenance of spouses and even maintenance of children. Is either myself or one of the members from the fellowship who will come to handle that particular area of maintenance of spouses and of children. Yes.
All right.
So the court is able to make provisions for the maintenance of either children or a spouse. Yes.
All right. I think we'll conclude with this one as we wait for other questions to come through and carry on with our conversation. This one, I think, is describing what you would call exceptional, or the other one, depravity, whereby this one is indicating, I don't know if it's a sister or a brother, we're saying living under one roof, they are not talking to one another, there is no intimacy for over 10 years. Over 10 years, because now, it's a lady who says he was too promiscuous, the husband was too promiscuous and contracted AIDS, not providing for immediate family, but has several wives and children he provides for out there. And this lady says she wants to apply for divorce. She's asking, may I?
I want to believe that desertion. And remember, we started by saying the Bible talks of adultery. We've been told about the conduct of the spouse. Also, abandonment. I don't think abandonment has to be physical. There are people who are closer apart than people that are. There are people that are closer, but most apart in their minds, and there are people that are mind in distance, but closer. Because it doesn't mean, for example, if a person goes to the US for studies for 3 years or 4 years and probably they don't come back. If they're in a good relationship, then you see now that can't be termed abandonment. So listening to that listener, then it sounds like they would have a ground, because you ask, it's 10 years. Okay, do they expect that there'll be some conciliation at some point? Are things going to get better? If they haven't gotten better, even in the period that the law provides of 3 years, I think I would tell them, go ahead. Yes. And I think that's where, even as a lawyer, you're also feeling for this person. You would do such a case knowing that you're doing the right thing. Yes.
For that, there's also that process that you said is the process of separation, or it just goes to the court, and then it's proven.
Yes.
Determined.
You normally go to court with the reasons why you want to separate, and the court is able to allow that, because again, you can't force people that where the relationship is so much strained, they would rather stay apart, as we said, so that they can think and see, reflect on their relationship. So the court will normally allow that. It's one of the reliefs that the court will give. And you remember I said, together with divorce, there is annulment, but also there is separation.
Mhm.
Yes.
All right. One more. I think one has come as
Yeah.
we conclude with the conversation. There's one who says that they married in church back in the mid 90s, had a certificate. I believe this is a marriage certificate. Have been separated for the last 12 years. Separated for the last 12 years. But he married again. I believe this is a lady. But he married again without us getting a divorce. But when I went to the church where we were married, there is no copy of our certificate. And even at the registrar of persons, it's not there. I just have a photocopy. He changed my surname to his, and now I want to change back to my surname. How do I go about it? And was the marriage register cause seeing what she's saying here, because they did a church
I
wedding.
would guess what they're asking. Remember when we talked about marriages, we talked about registering.
Yes, yes,
And you
yes,
said
yes.
it's the church retaining a copy,
Yes,
the
I
couple
remember.
retaining a copy, and an
Mhm.
extra copy being taken to Sharia house.
Yes.
There's a way they file those details. That's the way you register marriage.
Mhm.
Before, how is this? I think before the Marriage Act 2014, I think there used to be two certificates.
Mhm.
One, I think I think the church used to retain one. You retain one as the couple. Then what you do is you take the marriage book is like a checkbook.
Mhm.
I think the counterfoil is what you used to return to Sharia house, if I remember well. And what happens in the current regime and even before, if she has a copy, it's possible to go to Sharia house and ask for a certified copy. Because even today, if the church lost their copy, if you lost your copy, uh, if you wanted some evidence, then you would go and apply for a certified copy of the marriage certificate, and you will be given. And a certified copy is as good as the original, because then the original is lost. So now it's for her to maybe to go to Sharia house and find a copy. About the 12 years, again, this is a period way beyond. Remember, we said for separation, it shouldn't go beyond 2 years. Otherwise, the marriage is considered irretrievably broken down. For me, it sounds like a case where she would apply for divorce if that is what she wants.
Mhm.
And especially now, this other person has gone ahead and committed. You're supposed first to dissolve. You see, for him to marry in the other marriage, and I hope it wasn't a church or a civil,
I think it was a church, and I wonder how
because
came about.
it couldn't, and if he did that without disclosing to the pastors and the registrars of marriages wherever he did it, then that, I think, is a void marriage, because he didn't have capacity. Yes, you need to dissolve one to proceed with the other. Yes.
And another one here. My question is, how long does it take for divorce to be granted, having been separated from my hubby for 10 years plus? And should there be a hindrance to divorce being granted?
No, because we've said separation, desertion. It's past the 3 years that the law allows. Then she can go and apply for that divorce. Because you already have a ground, and you will bring evidence, you'll show that you've been apart for 10 years, the court is going to grant that. She has asked how long it takes. By the way, if parties don't start complicating things for each other, divorce is quite straightforward and quick. As little as 2 months, but within a year, most divorces are normally complete. Because as we shall see a little bit later, well, we have about, I'll go really fast.
Yes.
We have about another maybe 15 minutes to go
Yes,
through
please.
that. You normally file papers. The other party is supposed to respond. If they don't respond, then that divorce, we normally say it is undefended, and that one you'll get it really quick. But even if they defend, once all the papers are in file, the court, the registrar of the family division of the court, will normally certify that everything is together. The divorce case is ready for hearing, and most of the time they will say let it be heard for one day, and they will state the day and where it will be heard. So it is on, like, when things become complicated or there are many witnesses, that you'll find it going beyond one occasion. Otherwise, one day is normally enough to hear a divorce case. So some have taken as little as 2 months, but many will not go beyond a year. Yes.
All right. So we can carry on with our conversation as we were just looking at those grounds for divorce and all those other areas.
So very quickly, as the divorce process is going on in court, again, remember we say that there seem to be this overriding policy of saving marriages. So the court normally has the freedom to adjourn the matter for a period not exceeding 6 months if it has like queries to make, or if parties are attempting reconciliation. There's normally, the court normally gives the party those grace periods to see whether it will they will reconcile. And I'll even show that at the tail end of the process, even after the court has said yes, you can get divorced, it normally will give like a month for you people to go and see whether, yes, it has said you can, the marriage can be dissolved, but it gives about a month for you to go and see whether there's a change of heart. So let's finish. There isn't much remaining.
But on that note,
Yes,
because I've had, I think, 2 or 3 testimonies from people they have shared that they actually divorced. They actually divorced. Is there ground for them to remarry at some point, as in the two of them to remarry in future?
remarriage is allowed both in the law,
Mm-hmm.
although the law does not now make like provisions on like there are separate processes for when you want to remarry. And I know in the Bible, is it widows that are supposed to remarry? One of the writings of
Paul.
Yes.
Once the spouses they are free to remarry.
Yes.
I think both parties.
And I know churches, I've seen the constitutions and some documents of some churches that allow remarrying. What might be in contention is the period they give for parties to remarry, and some of them leave it to the discretion of the divorced party. So remarriage is allowed. Yes.
All right.
So very quickly, the process of how to go about it, and this we are mentioning in passing because it will most help a person who actually has a case. So if we went into detail, it would be probably for academic purposes if someone has not filed a case. So we said you first try reconciliation. If it fails, that's when you go to court. You normally file a petition. A petition will say, we married on this date, on this church. You annex the marriage certificate. You say whether they are children. And then after you file the papers, you're supposed to serve the other party with a notice to appear, to come and defend themselves. So if they fail to respond to that notice, or even to file a defense, I had said that one is seen as an undefended cause, which is a walkover, if you may use the sporting terms. It will be granted because they have not, they received the papers, but they have not seen it important to respond to anything. If they respond, then it's for the registrar of that court. There's a registrar who deals with the administrative issues. That's not the judge, although it normally will be a magistrate. He or she will look at the papers and find that they are in order. This one filed a petition, this one has responded, and they will normally give what is called a registrar's certificate or a compliance certificate. That is what it's called nowadays. And it's to say, I've looked at the papers, this case is ripe, is ready for hearing. And they will normally give a direction. It will be heard in Nairobi, in Milimani for a day. So the sequence then is like this. Very quickly, it's the filing of the petition, then signing of that notice to appear, then serving it on the other side, then receiving the other side's, the respondent's papers, issuance of a registrar certificate, as I've said, certifying that the matter is ripe for hearing. Then the hearing is done, and then what the judge or the magistrate does. I keep saying judge or magistrate. A magistrate is for the magistrate's court, a judge is for the high court. So the judge will issue what they call a decree nisi. It's a Latin word. It's like an initial decree. They will say, according to me, I'm satisfied that this marriage should be dissolved, but I'm not going to do so as yet. I'm giving you
a moment of reflection.
Yes. Is it like extra time?
Yeah, to think, are you really ready for this?
Do you want to change your mind? So I've said the law really, divorce comes as a last resort. There are other things that you must try. So if after a month there's no change of heart, then the court issues a final decree. It's called decree absolute. If later you want to remarry, you reconciled, who is there to stop you from doing that? And you can enter into a fresh marriage, hoping this time then that it will not be rocked by the same problems that led you apart. Let me finish so that then maybe we have a few minutes for questions. What are the effects of divorce? And I'm not dealing with the wounds and the injuries and other things, that other areas. We had said there are family law, people who deal with family issues, people who deal with social issues. I'm looking at the legal side. It is that you are free. You can marry now whoever you want, and then you are released from any obligation that you had towards the other spouse.
If you had children now.
Now that one, I wanted to address what happens post-divorce.
Okay.
As the divorce goes on, remember we had said the court normally gives some reliefs like maintenance of a spouse. Issues to do with children. Children are normally shielded from this process of divorce, and the law does not want. There are people who use children as a bargaining chip, so you're using it to bargain maybe for what you want. So children matters are normally dealt with at the children's court. That's normally a separate process that is child friendly. The children's court does not involve itself with your differences as a couple. For them, what they do is to serve the best interest of the child. But after divorce, maybe during and after, there are those issues of maintenance of a spouse, which can be granted as it's going on. But at the tail end, and again, this is normally a different, there are different proceedings. There are issues of matrimonial property, like how do you share what you had, who takes what, and in what shares. But as I had said, maybe the very better way of handling this is that we have another session that deals with maintenance, and we shall have another one that deals with the children issues. I'm sure the one about children issues, that one will be a loaded one, because there are many problems to do with children that have emanated either from divorce or people not taking parental responsibility. So as I've said, there are many other issues connected with marriages and divorce that time cannot allow us to handle, but we shall be able to handle them in a different session. Yes, probably we could do with a question or two.
Yes, we have questions already here. There is this one who says, I love the discussion. And this listener is asking, why would I wait for a spouse who lives to study in a far country for more than 4 years? Why would I wait for a spouse who lives to study in a far country for more than 4 years? Yeah.
I was saying that depends on the relationship, because I'll say there are people who can, although again it would be unreasonable that you go and you are staying away for 4 years, but presuming that it happened, I think the real issue would be what is the relationship between the two of you. We say there are people who can be far apart and even for long periods and the relationship is good. There are people who can be living under the same roof, but really there's desertion. I mean, even though the person has not deserted you physically, that's what I would say.
They've gone to study, probably they are communicating and all. What do you say about that?
I would guess. So I think, and you said, we will look at the situation. If this person went to the US, let's say, to study for masters, and they're not talking, and they're not responding,
4 years,
and they're not saying, "Wait for me, can we still take care of our relationship?" There's a possibility then they have deserted you because it's about the reality of the issue. Are they with you or are they not with you?
All right.
Yes.
All right. Let's have one more here. This one is from a listener who says, Bwana Yesu asifiwe. Amen. Nilipata ajali 2020, alafu mke wangu akaniacha hosi akaenda kwao. Hakunishughulikia, sai anataka kurudi. Sasa nifanyaje? I think right now probably amepona and now the wife wants to come back. 2 years, I think, 2 going to 3. Yeah, 2 years, I think.
I feel this is one of those issues where it is not every question that people ask that the solution is legal. There's that bit of for better for us, and we had said there's exceptional, not depravity. The last one about irretrievably broken down. And I think the law saw it good that it mentions insanity. It has not talked about accidents or that the person is paralyzed or those kinds of things. So I believe between these two, again, it depends on how is their relationship. Does he, I presume it's a man, does he want to take back the wife? How is the relationship? Because as we said, even people that are separated and divorced, if they want it to work and they want to be together, then it will work. We can't come and tell them, the law says you've been away for 4 years. And remember, the 3 year is just to give you a cutoff if you want to take action. But if you don't want and you reconcile within the 4th year, then I think it's for him to make that decision, the man, whether he wants to take back the wife. Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Thank you for that. And I'm so grateful that you've taken this conversation in a very good way, in that there is that element of hope. Because in the world we're living in right now, the statistics are so scary when it comes to matters divorce. And there are those who, there's some issues they would be going through and they want to rush. They want to rush now. They don't want this thing anymore. This person looks like a stranger to them now. They become an enemy and all that. With the issues you mentioned there, that has to do with abusive marriages, matters to do with desertion, adultery, cruelty and all that. I know you probably have a word to encourage couples. And then, you could also share with us now how a person would get in touch with you in case they need services of the Christian Lawyers Fellowship. They would like to get in touch with you. You can also let us know how they can communicate with you. Yeah.
I believe, let me start with the number, then I will repeat it again so that a person who's not taken it down can take it.
Yes.
The number for Kenya Christian Lawyers Fellowship is 0774. I believe that's an orange number, yeah?
0774
99 58 62. And we are at the KMA Plaza in Upper Hill. If you go there and you ask for our offices, then you will be directed. If you have any issue, you can contact us through that number. You asked me for what?
A word of encouragement, a final word, especially for couples.
We've been having this discussion with my classmates, high school classmates, about the way you go for a PhD for many years, you go to some of these courses that we value very much, we go for years. Then, for something that is very important and is meant to be for life, for better, for us, marriage, we do not, there's no training. So, how do people expect that something that you had no training then is just going to be very smooth as if you have any experience? What I would tell couples is to wait. We've seen the law also is not in a rush. It says give it some time before you decide to come to the law requiring to be separated or to be divorced. We've seen in the Bible, God hates divorce, and we've been told even from the beginning that's not the way it was. So, what I would ask couples is to hang in there, not foolishly, the ones we said of where you're being battered and you're being told still to continue hanging in there. But we said if the difficulties are not exceptional, then there are difficulties that every couple goes through. If you listen to our parents and these other people who will tell you 40 years married, 50 years married, if you ask them for the backstory, they will tell you probably there are times they wanted to go apart. You actually might hear from our parents that maybe the mother has packed their goods and gone back home for some time. And we've seen even the law allows separation. So wait, it's not that if you leave this person, you'll go and get a better person. Those other people only look good because you're not staying with them and you're not interacting with them. So there's hope, and let divorce be a last resort after you've done everything. You've tried mediation, you've tried conciliation, and when you have good grounds, not just flimsy grounds. Yes.
Well, thank you so much, Advocate Karanu Waweru, Advocate of the High Court, who has spent some time tonight with us to share more about divorce, what you needed to know about divorce, and what the law of Kenya has to say about the same. You could repeat the number. You said you'd repeat the number for the sake of the listener who has just joined us, how to get in touch with the Christian Lawyers Fellowship, and then who will crown it all.
I'll say it slowly. It's 0774 99 58 62. 99 58 62.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming over, and you send our love to our brothers there, the Christian Lawyers Fellowship, and also your family as we look forward to this great year that the Lord has given us. It's a great blessing, and here's all the best in your practice. You're welcome.